Take out your phone, hold it in your hand for a second. That little rectangle of glass is millions of times more powerful than the computer that carried human beings to the moon. Not twice as powerful, not 100 times, millions. The computer that flew Neil Armstrong to another world and back had less processing power than a musical birthday card, the kind that plays a tinny little song when you open it. That's what we used. In 1969, with that, we did the single most impossible thing our species has ever attempted. And here's the part that makes no sense. Today, with supercomputers in our pockets, with technology those engineers couldn't have dreamed of, we have not been back to the moon in over 50 years. Think about that. We did it then, with almost nothing, and we can't seem to do it now, with everything. And it gets stranger, because that first landing nearly didn't happen at all. In the final minutes, as the lunar module dropped toward the surface, alarms started screaming inside the cabin. The computer, the tiny, overloaded computer, was failing, throwing error codes nobody on the ground fully understood. And through all of it, Neil Armstrong looked out the window and saw that the computer was flying them straight into a field of giant boulders, any one of which could have torn the lander apart. So he took the controls himself, by hand, skimming across the surface of another world, hunting for somewhere, anywhere, flat enough to land. And when the Eagle finally touched down, they had somewhere between 15 and 25 seconds of fuel left. Seconds from having to abort the entire mission. That's how close it was. So we all know that we landed on the moon. What we've forgotten is how absolutely insane it was that we ever pulled it off. And that raises a question that's genuinely haunting. If it was that hard, that dangerous, and that expensive, why did we go back 5 more times and then just stop forever? To understand why we stopped, you first have to understand just how impossible the whole thing was to begin with. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy stood up and promised the world that America would land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. It was a breathtaking thing to say, because at that exact moment, the entire United States had a grand total of 15 minutes of human spaceflight experience. 15 minutes, one short hop, up and back down. That was it. They had never orbited the Earth. They had no rocket capable of reaching the moon. They didn't even know if a human could survive the journey. And their leader looked at the world and said, "We'll be walking on the moon in 9 years." Now here's the thing. People forget. We didn't do this because we were curious. We didn't do it to explore or to learn or to expand the human story. We did it because we were scared. This was the Cold War, and the Soviet Union was beating America at every single step. They launched the first satellite. They put the first human into space. America was losing badly and publicly, and Kennedy wanted one thing, a contest we could win. The moon was that contest. And so a terrified nation poured an almost unimaginable amount of money into it. At its peak, the moon program ate up around 4.5% of the entire United States federal budget. In today's money, the whole effort cost over $260 billion, an entire nation bending its full weight toward a single, desperate goal. And somehow, against all of it, they did it. On July 20th, 1969, as an estimated 650 million people watched, a fifth of everyone alive on Earth, a human being stepped onto another world. There's even a strange, human little detail most people never hear. The moon has a smell. The dust was so fine and so clingy that it stuck to everything, and when the astronauts climbed back in and repressurized the cabin, they could smell it, a sharp, burnt smell, like spent gunpowder. For the first time in history, a human being smelled the moon. And then we did it again and again. Between 1969 and 1972, 12 human beings walked on the surface of the moon across 6 separate landings. For a few short years, going to the moon became almost routine. And then, in December 1972, a mission called Apollo 17 lifted off the lunar surface, and the last human being stepped off the moon. And nobody has been back since. Not for 1 year, not for 10. For over 50 years, the moon has been completely empty of human footsteps. So what happened? Why would we climb the highest mountain in human history, plant our flag on the summit, and then just walk away and never return? The answer is uncomfortable, because remember why we went in the first place. It was never really about the moon. It was about beating the Soviet Union. It was about proving to the entire planet that America and its way of life was the strongest. As one historian put it, Apollo wasn't about exploration. It was about demonstrating global leadership in a Cold War contest. And the moment America won that contest, the moment those first footprints were made and the whole world was watching, the reason to keep going quietly evaporated. There were 3 more moon landings already planned. Apollo 18, 19, and 20. All of them were canceled because the public had already moved on. Landing on the moon was a thrilling, easy thing to understand. But the science of studying moon rocks, that was abstract and slow, and to most people, boring. By 1973, more than half of all Americans wanted the government to spend less on space, not more. We had reached the peak of human achievement for a reason that had almost nothing to do with the moon itself. And when the politics that drove us there finally cooled, so did the dream. But here's what's really strange. You might think, fine, we lost interest, but surely we could just go back whenever we wanted. We've done it before. We have better technology now. And this is the part that catches people off guard. Going back is genuinely, brutally hard because we didn't just stop going to the moon. We dismantled the entire machine that got us there. The mighty Saturn V rocket, the most powerful machine humans have ever built. We stopped making them. The factories that built them closed. The blueprints scattered. The thousands of engineers who held all that knowledge in their heads retired, and many of them have since passed away. We didn't pause the moon program. We took it apart. To go back, we would have to build almost all of it again, from the ground up. And there's a deeper problem. Apollo only happened because an entire superpower was terrified of losing. That fear opened an almost bottomless checkbook. Without a Cold War, without an enemy to beat, that kind of money and urgency simply doesn't exist. For 50 years, there was no fire under us, but that might finally be changing. A new race is quietly beginning, this time with China, and suddenly, going back to the moon matters again. The Artemis program is now working to return humans to the surface, and this time, the goal isn't just to plant a flag and leave, it's to go back and stay, to build something that lasts. And while all of that unfolds down here, something is waiting up there. Right now, tonight, on the surface of the moon, our footprints are still there, all 12 sets of them. There is no wind on the moon, no rain, nothing to disturb them. Those footprints will remain, perfectly preserved for millions of years, long after the pyramids have crumbled to dust, long, perhaps, after our own species is gone. And beside them sits a small metal plaque left behind by the first crew that reads, "We came in peace for all mankind." So the next time you look up at the moon, really look at it. Remember this. For one brief, terrifying, barely possible moment, our species reached out across the void and touched another world. And then we walked away and left a piece of ourselves standing in the dust. It's still up there right now, motionless, waiting. And the only question that remains is whether this time, when we finally go back, we'll stay.